I watched my husband raise his crystal champagne flute, the one his mother Andrea gave us for our wedding, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. This was the last time he'd celebrate anything in my apartment. "To new beginnings," Felix declared, his perfectly white teeth gleaming. "To finally breaking free from corporate slavery and finding my true calling. My name is Emily, and I've spent the last 5 years being the perfect, supportive wife while secretly building an empire right under my husband's nose." Tonight, he had no idea he was toasting to his own downfall. "Of course, darling," I smiled, clinking my glass against his. "Whatever makes you happy." Felix had dropped his bombshell over dinner. He was quitting his job as a financial analyst. No backup plan, no savings, just an overwhelming urge to find himself. The same man who'd sneered at my supposed part-time admin job was now expecting me to carry us both on what he thought was a measly $30,000 salary. "Mother's coming over to help us plan," he announced, already reaching for his phone. "She'll know exactly how to handle this transition." I kept my face carefully neutral. "Now, it's nearly 9 p.m. Emily, dear, this is important. Mother always knows best." 20 minutes later, Andrea swept in wearing her signature Hermes scarf and disapproving expression. "Felix, darling," she cooed, embracing him while barely acknowledging my existence. "Such a brave decision. I always said that job was beneath you." "Thanks, Mother." Felix preened under her attention. "Emily's been surprisingly supportive." Andrea's eyes narrowed as she turned to me. "Has she now? And how exactly do you plan to support my son during this, transition?" "I'm sure we'll manage," I said softly, pouring her a glass of wine. "I have some savings." "Savings?" Andrea laughed. "From that little reception job? Felix needs proper support right now, not pocket change." I watched them huddle together on my Italian leather couch, the one I'd bought with cash from my first property flip, planning Felix's journey of self-discovery as if I wasn't even there. 5 years of this. 5 years of being dismissed, patronized, and treated like an accessory in my own home. "We'll need to cut back on expenses," Felix announced grandly. "No more fancy coffee shops, Emily. And maybe you could pick up some extra hours?" Andrea nodded approvingly. "Sacrifices must be made. Family comes first, after all." "Of course," I agreed, my voice honey-sweet. "Whatever you need, Felix." They spent the next hour mapping out how I would support Felix's dreams. Neither bothered to ask about mine. They never had. "You'll need to cancel that gym membership," Andrea instructed, jotting notes in her little leather notebook. "And honestly, dear, those highlights can wait. Felix's journey is the priority now." I touched my perfectly maintained hair, paid for by the rental income from my downtown property, and smiled. "You're absolutely right, Andrea. Changes are definitely coming." Felix raised his glass again. "To our future! I couldn't do this without you, Emily." "No," I said quietly, watching him drain his champagne. "You really couldn't." Later that night, after Andrea finally left and Felix fell asleep on the couch, I stood in my home office and made a call. "Ruby, it's time. Have the papers ready tomorrow?" My best friend's voice crackled through the speaker. "All of them?" I looked at my sleeping husband, sprawled out like a king in a castle he didn't own. "Everything. Divorce papers, eviction notice, all of it. Let's see how well he finds himself when he's not standing on my shoulders." "You're sure?" I thought about the properties I'd accumulated, the empire I'd built while playing the role of submissive wife. I thought about Felix's condescending smirk every time he explained basic finances to me, and Andrea's subtle jabs about my simple job and modest ambitions. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. "Then let's do this," Ruby said. "Time to show them who you really are." I hung up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I'd stop being Felix's supportive wife and Andrea's compliant daughter-in-law. Tomorrow, I'd finally be myself. "Darling," Felix mumbled from the couch, "come to bed." "In a minute," I called back softly. I'm just thinking about our future. And I was. Just not the future he imagined. In less than 24 hours, I'd show them exactly what the quiet little wife was capable of. But for now, I'd let them dream their entitled dreams one last time. Ruby's office always felt like a war room to me, and today was no different. Spread across her desk were property documents, bank statements, and the carefully crafted papers that would end my marriage. 5 years, Ruby said, shuffling through the files. 5 years of playing small while building all this. You're either a saint or a mastermind. I traced my finger along the edge of my newest acquisition contract. Neither, just patient. Walk me through it again, Ruby insisted, pulling out her checklist. I want everything perfect for tomorrow. I settled into her leather chair, remembering the day that started it all. When my aunt died, she left me $50,000. Felix called it shopping money and told me to treat myself. And instead, you bought your first property. A rundown duplex, I nodded. Felix was working late, as usual. I signed the papers while he was at some client dinner with Andrea. Ruby pulled up the current value on her tablet. Now worth triple what you paid. And they never suspected? Why would they? Andrea told everyone I was simple but sweet. Felix assumed I spent my days filing papers and getting coffee. The phone rang. Nash, my property manager, calling with updates. Everything's ready, he reported. All tenants are secure. Paperwork's clean. You say the word, and we start the eviction process. Perfect. I ended the call and turned to Ruby. Remember when Felix insisted I didn't need a proper job because he'd always take care of me? Ruby snorted. While you were secretly closing on the Riverside apartments. 4 buildings now, I said quietly. 32 units, all paid for and profitable. And one very expensive soon-to-be ex-husband who's about to learn what it means to actually struggle. I picked up the divorce papers, feeling their weight. Felix always said I was bad with numbers, that I needed him to handle the finances. Meanwhile, you've built a real estate empire worth millions. Ruby leaned forward. Emily, are you absolutely sure about this? Once we serve these papers, there's no going back. The memory of last night's dinner flashed through my mind, Felix and Andrea, plotting away my future without a second thought. Show me the final numbers. Ruby pulled up the spreadsheet we'd prepared. Your personal account has $12,000, what Felix thinks is your entire savings. The business account under the LLC has just over $2 million. The properties are all owned by separate corporations, with you as the sole shareholder. And the prenup? Ironclad. Felix insisted on it, remember? To protect his assets. Ruby's laugh was sharp. The irony is beautiful. I stood and walked to the window, watching people hurry past on the street below. 5 years ago, I was one of them, running errands, trying to please everyone, making myself small. And now? Now I own the building they're walking past. I turned back to Ruby. Is everything in place for tomorrow? She nodded, pulling out a timeline. Nash will serve the eviction notice at 9 a.m. Divorce papers will arrive at 9:30. I've got security on standby in case Felix or Andrea make a scene. They will. I sat back down, pulling out my phone to show Ruby the dozens of missed calls from Felix. He's been trying to reach me all morning. Probably wants to discuss more ways I can support his journey. Should I be there tomorrow? I shook my head. No, this is something I need to do alone. Emily, Ruby hesitated. What about afterward? They'll try to fight this. Let them. I gathered the papers into my briefcase. Everything's legal. Everything's documented. They can fight all they want, but they can't change the truth. My phone buzzed again, another call from Felix. This time I answered. Darling, where are you? His voice was annoyed. Mother's here. We're planning my new wellness coaching business. She thinks you should cash out your retirement fund to help with startup costs. I caught Ruby's eye and put the phone on speaker. I'll be home soon, I said calmly. We can discuss everything then. Excellent. Mother's staying for dinner. Don't forget to pick up her favorite wine on your way back. The line went dead. Ruby raised an eyebrow. Wellness coaching? Apparently. I stood, straightening my jacket. His third calling this year. You know Andrea will be there tomorrow, too. Counting on it. I picked up my briefcase. Time for them both to learn what I've been doing while they were busy underestimating me. Ruby hugged me tight. Give them hell. I walked out of her office feeling lighter than I had in years. Tomorrow, I'd stop being invisible. Tomorrow, I'd show them exactly who they'd been dismissing all this time. And I couldn't wait. The morning sun streamed through our kitchen windows as I set Felix's favorite breakfast on the table. Imported yogurt, fresh berries, and artisanal granola. Underneath the bowl, perfectly centered, lay the divorce papers. Something smells amazing, Felix wandered in, still in his designer pajamas. You're up early. Big day, I smiled, pouring his coffee. Eat while it's fresh. He settled into his chair, immediately reaching for his phone. Mother's coming over at 10. We need to discuss the business plan for my coaching venture. The doorbell rang precisely at 9 a.m. Felix looked up, confused. Are we expecting someone? You are? I sipped my coffee, watching as he went to answer the door. Nash stood there, professional and polite, holding the eviction notice. Mr. Montgomery, legal documents for you, sir? I heard Felix's laugh, sharp, dismissive. There must be some mistake. This is my apartment. Actually, I called from the kitchen, it's mine. Felix stormed back in, papers clutched in his hand. What is this nonsense? Some kind of joke? Check your breakfast bowl. He yanked the divorce papers from under his untouched yogurt, face reddening as he read. What the hell, Emily? Keep reading, I said calmly. It's all very straightforward. This is ridiculous. He slammed both documents down. I'm calling Mother. Already on her way, remember? Perfect timing. Felix paced the kitchen, running his hands through his hair. You can't evict me from my own home. Your name isn't on the deed. Never has been. I stood, gathering the breakfast dishes. You have 30 days to find new accommodation. This is insane. Where am I supposed to go? How dare you? The doorbell rang again. Andrea burst in without waiting for an answer, her face already set in battle mode. Felix called me in hysterics, she announced. What have you done now, Emily? I handed her a copy of both documents. Just taking care of some overdue paperwork. Andrea's face went from red to white as she read. This is preposterous. You can't evict my son from his home. Not his home, I corrected. Mine, purchased 3 years ago through my property management company. Property management? Felix sputtered. What property management? You're a receptionist. I walked to my home office, returning with a stack of documents. Actually, I own 4 apartment buildings, this one included. That part-time reception job? Just a cover. Andrea snatched the papers, her hands shaking. Impossible. You're lying. Call the property office, I suggested. Ask for the owner. They'll connect you to my cell phone. Felix slumped into a chair. But the prenup, the one you insisted on? I smiled. Still valid. Everything I own is protected under separate LLCs, established before our marriage. Your lawyer approved it all. I'll fight this, Andrea hissed. We'll take you to court. Please do. I pulled out my phone, showing them the security app. But first you might want to leave. You're both trespassing now, and I have excellent lawyers. You can't do this to us, Felix shouted. I'm your husband. Soon-to-be ex-husband, I corrected. And I'm not doing anything to you, Felix. You did this to yourself when you decided to quit your job and live off my supposed minimum wage. Andrea grabbed Felix's arm. We're calling our lawyer. This gold-digging scheme won't work. I laughed then, really laughed, for the first time in years. Gold-digging? I'm worth more than your entire family, Andrea. Check the property records if you don't believe me. This isn't over, she snarled, dragging Felix toward the door. Actually, it is. I pressed the intercom. Nash, please escort Mr. Montgomery and his mother out. They were just leaving. Nash appeared with 2 security guards, professional, polite, immovable. You'll regret this, Andrea spat as they were led out. We'll destroy you. I watched from my window as they stormed to Andrea's luxury car, the one she'd mortgaged her house to afford. Felix looked back once, his face a mixture of rage and disbelief. My phone buzzed, Ruby calling. Well, she asked. Exactly as expected, I replied. Andrea threatened legal action. Felix had a meltdown. And how do you feel? I looked around my apartment, and smiled. Like I can finally breathe. They'll be back, Ruby warned. Let them come. I walked to my office, settling into my chair. I've got 5 years of documentation, rock-solid contracts, and the truth on my side. Want me to come over? No, I said, pulling up my property management software. I've got work to do, real work. After hanging up, I sat in the quiet of my office, listening to the echo of Andrea's threats and Felix's protests fade away. 5 years of pretense had ended in 30 minutes of chaos, and I'd never felt more powerful in my life. The lawyer's office felt colder than usual as Felix's attorney droned on about marital assets. 3 days had passed since the serving of papers, and here we were, watching Felix grasp at straws. My client demands half of all property assets acquired during the marriage, his lawyer stated, sliding documents across the table. My attorney, Sarah, didn't even blink. That would be nothing then. All properties were purchased through separate LLCs before the marriage. The apartment they lived in. Purchased 3 years before their wedding, Sarah interrupted, producing the deed. Next? Felix slammed his hand on the table. She used our joint account. Never, I said quietly. Check the records. Every property was purchased with separate funds. You can thank your prenup for keeping our finances so cleanly divided. This is absurd, Felix turned to his lawyer. She must have hidden money somewhere, transferred funds secretly. Sarah pulled out another file. Here are Mrs. Blake's complete banking records for the past 7 years. Everything is transparent and legal. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Emily, it's Nicole, Andrea's niece. We need to talk. It's important. I excused myself, stepping into the hallway to make the call. Emily, Nicole's voice was hushed. Are you alone? Yes. What's going on? Aunt Andrea is on the warpath. She's telling everyone you're mentally unstable, that you've been stealing from Felix for years. She paused. But that's not why I'm calling. I leaned against the wall. Go on. You're not the first, Emily. There was someone before you, Vada. Felix did the same thing to her 5 years ago. My hand tightened on the phone. What do you mean? He quit his job while they were engaged, said he needed to find himself, drained her savings, used her connections. When she finally stood up to him, Andrea helped him destroy her reputation. Where is she now? Running her own business across town. I can set up a meeting if you want. There's more you need to know. Back in the conference room, Felix was still ranting about hidden assets. We lived together, he shouted. She must have used our shared expenses for something. Sarah slid another document forward. Your client insisted Mrs. Blake pay exactly half of all household expenses documented here. The rest of her income was legally hers to invest as she pleased. Felix's face crumpled. But you were just a receptionist? No, I corrected. You assumed I was just a receptionist. You never asked what else I did. This meeting is over, his lawyer announced, gathering papers. We'll review our options. There are no options, Sarah stated firmly. The prenup is ironclad. Your client's idea, by the way. Mrs. Blake's properties are separate assets. End of discussion. As they stood to leave, my phone buzzed again. Ruby. Andrea's at Building C, she reported, trying to convince tenants she's the real owner. Nash is handling it. Of course she is, I sighed. Send me the security footage. Felix lingered by the door. Emily, we can work this out. I'll get a job, a real one this time. Like you promised Vada? He froze. How do you know about Vada? Your cousin Nicole is very informative. I gathered my belongings. How many times have you pulled this stunt, Felix? Quit your job, leech off a woman, move on when the money runs out? That's not. It wasn't. Save it. I walked past him. The eviction stands. 30 days. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Nicole with an address and time. Vada will meet you tomorrow at 2. She has receipts. I showed Felix the message. Seems like we both have appointments tomorrow. His face went pale. Emily, please, don't do this. You did this, I replied. I'm just finishing it. Outside, the spring air felt clean and sharp. Sarah walked me to my car. They have nothing, she assured me. The prenup is solid, the properties are protected, and all transactions are documented. Andrea will try something else. Let her. Sarah smiled. Every attempt just makes her look worse. I drove to Building C, where Nash waited with the security footage. Andrea's performance was almost impressive. Tears, claims of family betrayal, dramatic accusations. The tenants had simply called security. Should we press charges? Nash asked. Not yet. I watched Andrea's Mercedes peel out of the parking lot. Let's see what Vada has to say first. That night, alone in my apartment, I pulled up the security feeds from all 4 buildings. My empire, built in silence while playing the role of submissive wife. Tomorrow, I'd meet Vada and learn just how deep Felix's pattern went. But tonight, I savored the quiet and planned my next move. Because this wasn't just about divorce anymore. This was about exposing the truth, all of it. And I was just getting started. The cafe where I met Vada was quiet, tucked away in a part of town Andrea would never set foot in. I recognized her immediately. Confident posture, sharp eyes, designer blazer that screamed success. You must be Emily, she said, extending her hand. Nicole told me what's happening. History really does repeat itself. Tell me everything, I replied, sitting down. First, Vada pulled out her phone. Let's make this interesting. Felix still thinks he's meeting a potential investor here in 20 minutes. My eyebrows shot up. How did you manage that? Used my old email, the one he doesn't know I still have. He always was desperate for easy money. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Mind if I record this? Please do. We ordered coffee and waited. Vada told me about her engagement to Felix, how he'd convinced her to invest in his revolutionary startup right after quitting his job. He took everything, she said quietly. My savings, my business contacts. Andrea helped him, of course, called me unstable when I finally confronted them. Sounds familiar. There she is, Felix's voice boomed across the cafe. He froze when he saw us together. What? What is this? Sit down, Felix, Vada commanded. We're having a little reunion. His face went through several emotions before settling on charm. Vada, darling, what a surprise. Emily, sweetheart, I can explain. Explain what? I asked calmly. How you pulled the same scam on both of us. Quit your job, claim you're finding yourself, drain our resources. It wasn't like that. He looked around frantically. Where's the investor? Vada held up her phone. There isn't one, but this conversation is being recorded. You can't. Actually, we can, I interrupted. Single-party consent state. And you really should sit down. Andrea's about to join us. Right on cue, Andrea burst through the door. Felix, don't say another word. I got your text about a trap. She stopped short, seeing all of us together. Andrea, Vada smiled, still wearing that fake Hermes scarf, I see. You, Andrea sputtered. How dare you? Sit, I commanded, both of you, now. Maybe it was my tone, or maybe they finally realized they were cornered. Either way, they sat. Here's what's going to happen, I began. Felix, you're going to sign these papers agreeing to an uncontested divorce. Andrea, you're going to stop harassing my tenants and spreading lies." "Or what?" Andrea sneered. Vada slid forward a thick folder. "Or we release these documents? Bank statements showing how Felix embezzled from my company. Emails proving Andrea's involvement. Oh, and evidence of 3 other women he tried this with." Felix went pale. "3? You didn't think Nicole would find them?" I asked. "She's very thorough." "This is blackmail," Andrea hissed. "No," Vada corrected. "This is consequences. Sign the papers, Felix. Walk away, or I press charges for the money you stole from my company." I didn't steal. Forging my signature on company checks?" Vada's voice was steel. "That's theft, Felix. The statute of limitations hasn't expired." Felix's hands shook as he reached for the divorce papers. "Emily, please, we can work this out." "Like you worked it out with Vada and Jessica and Maria?" I pushed a pen toward him. "Sign." Andrea grabbed his arm. "Don't you dare! We can fight this." "Actually," I pulled out my phone, showing them an email. "You can't. Your house is being foreclosed, Andrea. Can't afford lawyers without money." "How did you—" "I bought your mortgage," I smiled. "Amazing what you can do with good credit and actual income." The color drained from Andrea's face. Felix looked between us, broken. "You have 2 choices," I continued. "Sign the papers, walk away, and we all move on, or don't, and face fraud charges, public exposure, and complete financial ruin." "You wouldn't," Andrea whispered. Vada leaned forward. "Try us." Felix signed, each page, every line, his hands trembling. "Now get out," I said quietly. "Both of you. And if I hear one more rumor, see one more attempt to contact my tenants, or find you anywhere near my properties, everything goes public." They left, Andrea practically dragging Felix, who kept looking back like he couldn't believe what had happened. "Well," Vada sat back, "that was satisfying." "Thank you," I said, "for everything." "Thank you. I've waited 5 years to see him face consequences." She gathered her things. "Keep the evidence file. Insurance." As she stood to leave, she paused. "Emily, the best revenge isn't just winning, it's thriving." I watched her walk away, confident and free, and knew she was right. I'd won this battle, but the real victory would be in what I built next. My phone buzzed, Ruby calling with updates about a new property opportunity. Time to get back to work, time to thrive. The knock on my office door was frantic. I already knew who it was before opening it, Andrea looking significantly less polished than usual. "Please," she said, mascara smeared under her eyes. "I need your help." I let her in, watching as she clutched her knockoff designer handbag. "The foreclosure?" "I'll lose everything," her voice cracked. "The house, my reputation, everything I've built." "You mean everything you pretended to build?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Sit down, Andrea. Let's talk about reality." Ruby walked in, right on schedule, carrying a stack of financial records. "Oh, perfect timing. These just came in from the bank." Andrea's eyes darted between us. "What records?" "Your mortgage history," I replied, taking the documents from Ruby. "Very interesting reading. Multiple refinances, hidden credit cards, tax liens. You've been drowning for years." "That's private information." "Not when I own the debt." I spread the papers out. "You mortgaged your house to the hilt, living beyond your means, counting on Felix to marry rich and bail you out." She crumpled in the chair. "You don't understand. My position in society—" "Is fake," Ruby interrupted, "just like your Hermes scarves." "I can pay," Andrea pleaded. "Just give me time. Felix will find another victim?" I leaned forward. "Like Vada? Like me? That plan's finished, Andrea. Felix signed the divorce papers. It's over." My phone buzzed, a text from Nicole. "Aunt Andrea missing from brunch. Headed your way?" Your own niece knew you'd try this. I showed Andrea the message. You've become predictable. What do you want? Andrea whispered. Name your price. Ruby pulled up a chair. Actually, we have a proposition. I slid a document across the desk. Sign over the house. Walk away clean. We'll handle the debt. And live where? Do what? Andrea's voice rose hysterically. I'm not some common renter. You're about to be homeless, Ruby pointed out. Those are worse odds. My office phone rang, Nash reporting that Felix had been spotted trying to enter Building B. Excuse me, I stepped out to take the call. What's he doing? Telling tenants he's the owner's husband, Nash sighed. Want me to call the police? No, send me the footage. We might need it later. When I returned, Andrea was reading the offer, her hands shaking. This is nothing, she said. The house is worth less than you owe, Ruby cut in. We're offering you a clean slate. Most people don't get that chance. I could fight this. With what money? I sat back down. Your credit cards are maxed. Your house is underwater. Felix can't help you anymore. Andrea's facade finally cracked. I just wanted him to be successful, to have everything I couldn't give him. By destroying other women? I pushed the pen closer. Sign, Andrea. End this cycle. What will people say? They're already talking. Ruby showed her phone. Social media posts about Andrea's financial troubles. At least this way you leave with dignity. Andrea signed, her signature wobbling. What happens now? Now you start over, I said, like all the women you and Felix tried to destroy had to do. I have nowhere to go. Nicole offered to help, I revealed. Your niece has a spare room. She's willing to give you a chance, despite everything. Andrea's head snapped up. Nicole? But she sided with you. She sided with the truth, Ruby corrected. Something you might want to try. After Andrea left, clutching her copy of the agreement, Ruby turned to me. Think she learned anything? Probably not, I admitted. But she's powerless now. That's what matters. Speaking of power, Ruby pulled out her tablet. That Riverside complex is still available. Perfect addition to your portfolio. I looked at the property details, thinking about the future. What if we did something different? Different how? Turn it into transitional housing, I suggested, for women starting over, professional development programs, financial literacy classes. Ruby's eyes lit up. Using your empire to help others build theirs? Poetic justice. Vada could help run it, I added. She's got the business experience. Nicole, too, if she's interested. From revenge to revolution, Ruby smiled. I like it. My phone buzzed again. Nash sending security footage of Felix being escorted out, still protesting about his rights as my husband. Should we worry about him? Ruby asked. No, I replied, watching him retreat on the screen. He's finished. They both are. I turned back to the Riverside property plans, already imagining the possibilities. 5 years ago, I'd started buying buildings to secure my own freedom. Now I could help others find theirs. Make the offer, I told Ruby. It's time to build something new. Something better than revenge. Something that would last. The courthouse hallway felt endless as I walked toward courtroom B, Ruby and Sarah flanking me. Despite the signed divorce papers, Felix had made one last desperate attempt, contesting the prenup. Remember, Sarah whispered, let me do the talking. He's trying to provoke an emotional response. Felix and his new lawyer waited inside, along with a noticeably absent Andrea. Nicole had texted earlier. Her mother had finally moved in with her, broken but accepting reality. All rise, the bailiff called as Judge Martinez entered. Your Honor, Felix's lawyer began, my client contests the prenuptial agreement on grounds of fraud and coercion. Mrs. Blake deliberately concealed assets. Objection, Sarah interrupted. The prenup was drafted by Mr. Montgomery's own legal team. Mrs. Blake's assets were separately held before marriage. She deceived my client about her true financial status. Judge Martinez peered over her glasses. Did Mr. Montgomery ask about her finances? Well, no, but did Mrs. Blake ever lie when directly questioned about her business dealings? She led him to believe, yes or no, counselor? Felix's lawyer deflated. No, Your Honor. Mrs. Blake, the judge turned to me, did you ever explicitly lie to your husband about your financial status? No, Your Honor. Felix assumed I worked part-time. He never asked about my other business ventures. Because she hid them, Felix burst out, standing. She played me for a fool. Mr. Montgomery, Judge Martinez warned, control yourself. This isn't fair, Felix's voice cracked. She has everything, and I have nothing. Your Honor, Sarah produced a document. Mr. Montgomery insisted on this prenup. His own emails state he wanted to protect his assets from, quote, gold diggers like Emily. The courtroom fell silent. Felix slumped in his chair. Furthermore, Sarah continued, Mrs. Blake's business activities all predated the marriage. The prenup, drafted by Mr. Montgomery's attorneys, specifically protected separately held assets. Your Honor, please, Felix stood again. I don't know who I am without her. Sit down, Mr. Montgomery. Judge Martinez reviewed the documents. This prenup is valid and binding. Motion to contest is denied. No, you don't understand. Felix moved toward me. Emily, please, I'll do anything. The bailiff stepped forward, but I held up my hand. It's okay. Let him speak. Felix's eyes were desperate. We can start over. I'll get a real job. I'll be better. Like you promised Vada? That was different. I love you. No, I said quietly. You loved what I could give you. There's a difference. Mrs. Blake is correct, Judge Martinez interjected. And this hearing is over. The prenuptial agreement stands. Outside the courtroom, Felix caught up to me one last time. What am I supposed to do now? He asked, his voice small. Get a job, Ruby suggested, like the rest of us. I don't even have a place to live. Actually, I turned to face him, I have a proposition. He perked up instantly. Hope flickered in his eyes. There's a studio apartment available in Building C, I said. Basic, but clean. Affordable rent. You'd let me stay? As a tenant, regular lease, regular rules, no special treatment. Why would you do this? Because someone needs to break this cycle, I replied. And it might as well be me. Ruby pulled out a lease agreement. Standard terms, first and last month's rent required. You'll need to prove income. Felix stared at the paper. I don't have any money. Then get a job, I said simply. The apartment will be available when you can afford it, like everyone else. Emily. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. This is business, Felix, nothing more. Take it or leave it. He took the lease with trembling fingers. I don't know how to start over. Yes, you do, I corrected. You just never had to before. As we walked away, Ruby shook her head. That was generous, maybe too generous. Maybe, I agreed, but this way he has to earn everything, no more shortcuts. My phone buzzed, Vada calling about the Riverside property plans. The contractor's here, she reported, ready to discuss the renovation for the Women's Center? On my way, I replied. Nicole's joining us too. She has great ideas for the program. Ruby smiled as we left the courthouse. From taking revenge to giving chances, you're full of surprises. Not revenge, I corrected. Justice, and maybe a little hope. Outside, the spring air felt different, cleaner somehow. 5 years of pretense had ended in a 15-minute hearing. Felix would have to rebuild his life from scratch, just like he'd forced others to do. But this time, he'd have to do it honestly. And maybe, just maybe, that would make all the difference. Ready? Ruby asked, holding the car door. I looked back at the courthouse one last time. Ready to build something new. The Riverside property buzzed with activity as construction crews finished the final touches on the Women's Center. Vada stood beside me, reviewing the checklist on her tablet. 20 fully furnished apartments, she noted, financial literacy classroom, business center, and career counseling office. We're ready for opening day. Almost ready, I corrected, watching Nicole direct the installation of the lobby sign. New Beginnings Center, a place to rebuild. Ruby burst through the front doors. Emily, you need to see this. She handed me her phone, an email from Felix. My finger hovered over delete, but the subject line caught my eye. Thank you. He got the job, Ruby explained. Entry-level accounting at that firm downtown. Started last week. And paid his first month's rent, Nash added, joining us with the tenant ledger. On time, in full. I handed the phone back without reading the email. Some chapters needed to stay closed. Andrea called too, Nicole said, walking over. She's enrolled in a bookkeeping course at the community college. Says she's learning to stand on her own feet. Speaking of standing, Gachan, Vada interrupted, our first residents arrive in an hour. Should we do one final walkthrough? We toured the building together, my team, my friends, my support system. Each apartment represented a fresh start. Each classroom, a new skill to learn. Each office, a chance to grow. The rooftop garden was my favorite space. Looking out over the city, I could see all 4 of my buildings, but this one was different. This one wasn't about making money or proving points. First groups here, Ruby called from the stairwell. Downstairs, 7 women waited in the lobby, carrying bags and boxes. Their faces showed different stories. Divorce, job loss, starting over. I recognized that look. I'd worn it myself once. Welcome to New Beginnings, I said, stepping forward. I'm Emily. This is your home for as long as you need it. We can't afford much, one woman admitted, clutching her paperwork. That's why we're here, Vada explained. Affordable housing while you rebuild. Career training, financial education, whatever you need to start fresh. Why are you doing this? Another asked. What's the catch? No catch, Jura assured them. Just women helping women break cycles. Nicole started the tours while Ruby handled paperwork. I watched them all, my past self reflected in their uncertain steps, my present self in their determination to change. Excuse me, a quiet voice behind me. I turned to find a young woman, barely 25. Are you really the owner? Yes. Why? Because I heard stories, she twisted her hands together, about how you built all this while pretending to be powerless, how you turned the tables on people who underestimated you. Those stories aren't the point, I said gently. The point is what you'll build next. I don't know how. That's why we're here. I gestured to the classroom where Vada was setting up tomorrow's first financial literacy session. To show you how. My phone buzzed. A text from Nash. Felix paid next month's rent early, asked about financial literacy classes. I showed the message to Ruby. Should we? Your call, she shrugged. It's your empire. No, I corrected. It's not about empire anymore. It's about change. I texted Nash back. Send him the class schedule. Everyone deserves a chance to learn. The lobby filled with voices as more women arrived. Nicole guided tours, Vada explained programs, Ruby processed paperwork. This was what winning really looked like, not destroying others, but building something stronger. Ready for the ribbon cutting? Vada asked, scissors in hand. I looked around at my team, at Ruby, who'd believed in me from the start, at Vada, who'd helped me face the truth, at Nicole, who'd chosen right over easy, at Nash, who'd kept everything running smoothly. Actually, I handed the scissors to the young woman who'd asked about the stories. Would you like to do the honors? She took them with shaking hands. But I just got here. Exactly, I smiled. This is your new beginning, too. The ribbon fell. Applause filled the lobby. And somewhere in the city, Felix sat in his studio apartment, learning to stand on his own feet, while Andrea studied for a future she'd have to earn. But here, in this building, something new was growing. Something stronger than revenge, more powerful than justice, more lasting than victory. Hope, change, beginning again. "Welcome home," I told the gathered women. "Let's build something amazing together." And in their eyes, I saw my own reflection, not as I had been, small and pretending, but as I was now, powerful, free, ready to help others find their strength. This was the real happy ending, not just winning, but transforming victory into opportunity for others. This was just the beginning.